Mary noticed it first during vocabulary lessons. The way Mr. Harrison's left eye twitched when someone mispronounced Renaissance. It was October, and the fluorescent lights in room 214 hummed their usual tired song while 27 eighth graders slouched in their seats, thinking about lunch, about weekend plans, about anything except the difference between similes and metaphors. Actually, Mr. Harrison said, interrupting Sophie mid-sentence, the proper pronunciation emphasizes the second syllable. Renaissance. His fingers drummed against his desk in an unfamiliar staccato pattern. And your posture, Sophie? Spine straight, shoulders back. Yes, exactly like that. Sophie blinked, confused but obedient. She straightened. The corrections multiplied like cells dividing under a microscope. By the end of that week, Mr. Harrison had interrupted every student at least 6 times. He corrected grammar that wasn't wrong, questioned facts pulled straight from textbooks, and insisted on bizarre specifics. When Tyler coughed, Mr. Harrison's head snapped toward him. Cover your mouth at a 45-degree angle, not 90. The optimal dispersal pattern requires... He trailed off, his expression momentarily clouded with something that looked like fear wearing a stranger's face. Mary had always liked Mr. Harrison. He'd helped her through fractions last year when her parents were divorcing, never making her feel stupid for not understanding. He'd let her eat lunch in his classroom when the cafeteria felt too loud, too bright, too full of people pretending everything was fine. Now she watched him pace between desks like a man walking on broken glass, his movements increasingly mechanical. The following Monday, he wore a fitness tracker on each wrist. The devices blinked red and green in alternating patterns, synchronized to something only he could perceive. When he wrote on the whiteboard, he'd stop mid-word, check both wrists, then adjust the pressure of his grip before continuing. Mr. Harrison? Mary raised her hand during silent reading. Are you okay? He turned to her, and for a moment, his eyes held their old warmth. Then his mouth opened and words spilled out in a rhythmic cascade. Define okay. The subjective nature of wellness exists on a spectrum requiring parametric analysis. Your concern is noted but imprecisely articulated. Please rephrase using measurable criteria. The class had gone silent. Even the usual troublemakers sat frozen, sensing something fundamentally wrong, the way animals know to flee before earthquakes split the earth. By November, Mr. Harrison had stopped making eye contact. His gaze fixed on mouths, on throats, on the rise and fall of chests. He'd interrupt students mid-breath. Inhale for 4 counts, not 3. Hold for 7. Exhale for 8. The vagus nerve responds optimally to specific ratios. His own breathing had become audible, measured, a metronome clicking away the seconds of his unraveling. Mary started dreading 3rd period. The classroom had transformed into something resembling a laboratory, every surface marked with measurements only Mr. Harrison understood. Tape marked exact positions on the floor where chairs should sit. Numbers covered the walls, equations calculating the ideal temperature, humidity, and light frequency for optimal learning conditions that somehow made learning impossible. Principal Richards visited one afternoon. Mary watched from her seat as Mr. Harrison corrected the principal's handshake angle, criticized her word choice, and suggested she modify her blink rate to match neurologically optimal patterns. Principal Richards left quickly, her professional smile cracking at the edges. The worst came in December. Mr. Harrison stood at the front of the class, both hands pressed against his chest. His face had gone the color of old paper. Heart rate variability, he whispered, but his voice carried in the absolute silence of 27 students holding their breath. Too much variation. Need to regulate the intervals. Standardize the rhythm. His fingers tapped against his ribs, counting. His lips moved in constant calculation. Someone get the nurse, Mary said, but nobody moved. They were all caught in the gravity of watching something terrible and inevitable unfold, the way people can't look away from storm clouds gathering on summer horizons. The sinoatrial mode fires incorrectly, Mr. Harrison continued, his voice taking on the hollow quality of wind through empty buildings. Must correct the electrical impulses. Must optimize the automaticity. The Purkinje fibers require... His knees buckled. Mary ran for help, her footsteps echoing down hallways that suddenly felt miles long. Behind her, she could hear Mr. Harrison's voice still droning on, correcting his own biology, adjusting his existence with the same pedantic precision. He had once used to teach them the difference between your and your. When the ambulance came, the paramedics found him conscious but unreachable, his hands still pressed to his chest, his lips still moving in endless calculation. Mary heard one paramedic whisper to another, "His vitals are stable, but it's like he's trying to manually control everything. Like he's forgotten how to just be." They wheeled him out on a stretcher, and Mary saw his eyes find hers for just a moment. In that glance, she recognized the person he'd been, trapped inside the prison of his own impossible standards, correcting himself into something that could no longer sustain the beautiful, messy accident of being human. Room 214 got a substitute teacher the next day, but sometimes, late at night, Mary still caught herself monitoring her breathing, counting her heartbeats, terrified that precision might be contagious after all. The notification appeared on my phone at 3:47 a.m., pulling me from dreams of depositions and client meetings that had bled into my subconscious like ink through wet paper. You have violated Section 12.4(b) of the Sleep Track Premium User Agreement. Mandatory wakefulness period now in effect. I stared at the screen, my lawyer's mind automatically parsing the words, even as my exhausted body screamed for sleep. Sleep Track. I'd downloaded it 6 years ago, used it maybe twice, forgotten about it entirely. I reached to delete the notification, but my finger froze an inch from the screen. Standing at the foot of my bed was a figure, not exactly standing. Existing, perhaps. A presence shaped like a person, but composed of something that hurt to perceive directly, like staring at fine print until the letters writhe and separate. Where a face should have been, there was only a smooth blankness that somehow suggested infinite attention to detail. "Who are you?" My voice came out steady. Years of courtroom work had taught me to mask fear with professional composure. A figure didn't speak. Instead, text began appearing in the air between us, scrolling like terms of service on an endless page. You accepted 3,247 user agreements between January 2015 and present day. Acceptance rate, 100%. Reading rate, 0.002%. Compliance rate, pending enforcement. This is ridiculous. I swung my legs out of bed, reaching for my phone to call someone. The police? My therapist? But my hand stopped mid-reach, fingers locked in place as if gripped by invisible brackets. More text materialized. Phone usage restricted per Instagram terms of service. Section 4.8. No telecommunications during designated content consumption. Hours 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. I haven't used Instagram in months, I said, my voice climbing toward panic despite my efforts to control it. Irrelevant. Agreement remains active until formal account deletion per Section 19.2. Verbal communication now restricted per Discord privacy policy. Clause 7(d). No off-platform speech during server quiet hours. My throat constricted, not painfully, but absolutely. The words I tried to form dissolved before reaching my lips, as if my own body had become subject to terms I'd never read, bound by contracts I'd signed with the automated thoughtlessness of modern life. The figure moved closer, and I understood with crystalline horror that it wasn't one entity but thousands, maybe millions, all occupying the same impossible space. Each user agreement I'd ever accepted had spawned its own enforcer. and they had merged into this composite nightmare of legalistic precision. Text continued its relentless scroll, conflicting obligations detected. Amazon Prime terms require you to remain seated for optimal product recommendation algorithm training. Spotify user agreement mandates standing during premium content delivery hours. Violation of either constitutes breach of contract. I tried to stand, tried to sit, my body locked in a half crouch, muscles trembling with the impossibility of satisfying contradictory demands. Sweat traced cold paths down my spine like signatures on endless digital documents. "You're not real," I whispered, or tried to. The words barely formed, restricted by 7 different social media platform policies regarding off-hours communication. The figure tilted its non-head, and somehow I felt its pedantic satisfaction, the joy of an entity that existed solely to enforce the unenforceable. More text bloomed in the darkness of my bedroom. Google Maps location services requires your presence at 47.2 north, 122.3 west at 4 a.m. for data collection purposes. Uber user agreement mandates availability for ride requests within 3-minute response window. FitTrack Premium demands 10,000 steps completed before 5 a.m. or face subscription penalties as outlined in section 34.6 F2A. The obligations multiplied like cells dividing, each spawning new requirements that contradicted the last. I should be sleeping per my meditation app's wellness protocol. I should be awake per my productivity software's optimization schedule. I should be eating per my meal planning service's nutritional guidelines. I should be fasting per my health tracker's intermittent fasting commitment logged 3 years ago and never canceled. Time fractured. Minutes became minefields of micro-obligations, each second governed by overlapping jurisdictions of forgotten agreements. The figure produced a clipboard from nowhere, its pages infinite, listing every thoughtless click, every unread scroll, every I agree button I pressed while thinking about case files and billable hours and what to make for dinner. "Please," I managed, the word escaping through a narrow window between conflicting speech restrictions. "I'll read them. I'll cancel everything." Text appeared, cold and final. Cancellation protocols require 30-day notice per average platform policy. During notice period, all terms remain enforceable. Contradictions are user responsibility to resolve. My phone buzzed. 17 apps simultaneously demanded attention, each claiming priority per their respective agreements. I was required to respond within timeframes that had already passed, creating retroactive violations that spawned new penalties, new restrictions, new impossible demands. The figure leaned closer, and I smelled something like old paper and electronic signatures, the scent of binding contracts signed in haste and regretted at leisure. Except there would be no leisure. Every moment was spoken for, claimed by services I'd forgotten existed, bound by terms I'd never imagined would matter. How do I stop this? I asked, my lawyer's mind still searching for the loophole, the escape clause, the technicality that would free me. The answer appeared in text that wrapped around my vision like chains made of words. "You can't. You agreed to everything. Every single thing. And we're just here to make sure you comply." My bedroom had become a courtroom where I was simultaneously plaintiff, defendant, and evidence. The figure multiplied, fracturing into countless versions of itself, each holding a different agreement, each pedantically noting my failures to comply with terms I'd never read. Outside, dawn approached. My calendar app informed me I was required to be in 7 different locations simultaneously. My violation count was already in the thousands, and the figure, that terrible composite of every careless click, simply waited, patient, eternal, enforcing the unenforceable with the mechanical precision of systems that never sleep, never forget, and never ever forgive. The Whitmore estate listing promised a challenge, and I needed the money. 3 months behind on rent, my organizing business circling the drain like water, seeking its inevitable exit, I'd have taken any job. Even one that came with a warning from the realtor. The previous owner vanished, left everything exactly as it was. The house is particular. Particular. The word should have triggered every instinct I'd honed over 12 years of helping hoarders and grieving widows sort through the accumulated debris of human lives. But I was thinking about my daughter's orthodontist bill, about the car payment due Tuesday, about all the ordinary catastrophes that make people do stupid things. The mansion crouched on 6 acres of overgrown gardens like a judge presiding over decay. Victorian architecture twisted into something that suggested order and discipline. Every window aligned with geometric precision, every stone fitted so perfectly that not even moss dared grow between the seams. The front door opened before I could knock. Inside, the foyer gleamed. Not with cleanliness, exactly, but with an intentionality that pressed against my skin like static electricity before a storm. Every object occupied its space with such absolute certainty that moving anything seemed not just wrong, but impossible, like trying to relocate a mountain or reschedule gravity. I checked my notes. Master bedroom first. Sort clothing by category, donate what's salvageable, document everything for the estate. Simple, professional. I'd done this 100 times. The bedroom door opened smoothly, silently, and I stepped into organized madness. Clothes hung in the closet, arranged by color, yes, but also by thread count, fiber composition, and something I couldn't identify until I looked closer. Manufacturing date down to the hour. A blue cotton shirt from 2 p.m. hung separate from an identical shirt made at 3 p.m. Between them, a gap of precisely 1 inch. Okay, I said aloud, my voice swallowed by the room's peculiar acoustics. Someone was very particular. I reached for the 2 p.m. shirt. My hand stopped 6 inches from the fabric. Not because I'd changed my mind, because I couldn't move it closer. The air itself had become solid, resistant, pushing back with the immovable authority of natural law. A sound whispered through the room, soft as settling dust. Incorrect sorting methodology detected. I jerked back, pulse hammering against my ribs. The closet remained empty of people, but something watched from the arrangement itself, some intelligence woven into the obsessive precision. Who's there? Words appeared on the wall, forming from shadows that shouldn't exist in the well-lit room. Items must be handled in order of acquisition, cross-referenced by seasonal relevance, adjusted for barometric pressure at time of purchase. Deviation results in collection violation. My mouth went dry. I'd heard of obsessive-compulsive disorder, had worked with clients whose needs bordered on extreme, but this was something else. This was order that had achieved consciousness, demand elevated to divinity. Furthermore, the words were written in shadow, not projected as bright neon lights. I am definitely not looking at some smart home technology. I backed toward the door. It had closed without sound or movement, and now it bore no handle, no visible means of opening. The wood grain had rearranged itself into text, tiny and precise. Exit protocols require successful completion of assigned organizational tasks. Failure to comply results in permanent integration into household inventory. The temperature dropped, not gradually, but with the suddenness of a switch being thrown. My breath emerged in clouds that immediately organized themselves into geometric patterns before dissipating. I ran to the window. Below, the overgrown gardens had transformed. Every plant stood at attention, arranged by species, height, chlorophyll content. Between the flower beds, I saw shapes that might have been statues. Except statues don't wear expressions of eternal horror, don't clutch pruning shears in frozen hands, don't stand sorted by height and age and the particular way they'd failed the garden's impossible demands. No, the word came out sharp, lawyer-like. My other career, the one I'd abandoned for this post-freedom of self-employment. This is insane. Houses don't have rules. Objects don't enforce compliance. Text bloomed across every surface. Previous organizational consultant violated book arrangement protocols in the library. Required sorting by font size, publication date, and molecular weight. She attempted to sort alphabetically. Unacceptable, current status, library, science fiction section, cautionary tales subsection, 1970s, mass market paperback format. The bedroom began to shift. Walls moved inward with glacial inevitability, the space reconfiguring itself around me. I understood with terrible clarity that the room was measuring me. Height, 5'6". Weight, 143 pounds. Hair color, brown with premature gray. Occupation, professional organizer, failed attorney, single mother, woman who'd made too many compromises and not enough money. The closet doors opened wider, revealing new spaces that couldn't possibly fit within the mansion's exterior dimensions. Each space perfectly organized, each containing something that had once been human. A mailman sorted with the letters he'd failed to deliver in proper zip code sequence. A gardener shelved between the topiary shears and hedge trimmers, arranged by blade length. A real estate agent filing cabineted according to failed sales, chronologically descending. "Please," I whispered, "I have a daughter. She's 9. She needs me." The text reformed, pedantic, and pitiless. Emotional appeals constitute disorganized thinking. Irrelevant data. You accepted this assignment. You entered the premises. You attempted to impose your inferior organizational methodology upon a superior system. Integration protocols now active. The walls were close enough to touch. I pressed against them, feeling them catalog my panic, sort my fear into categories of increasing desperation. The air grew thick with the scent of old paper and furniture polish, with the chemical smell of preservation and the deeper rot of things kept past their natural ending. I thought of my daughter, of the mess in our apartment that I'd promised to organize this weekend, of the beautiful chaos of her room with toys scattered like evidence of joy, books piled in order of preference rather than publication date, her life gloriously unsorted and free. The closet pulled me forward. Not with hands, but with the inexorable gravity of systems that demand compliance. My feet shuffled across the floor, and I realized they were measuring my shoe size, my gait, the particular way I'd worn down the left heel faster than the right. I would be sorted, filed, shelved in some specific location determined by criteria I couldn't begin to understand. Perhaps in the foyer with other home organizers who'd failed the house's standards. Perhaps in the basement with those who'd arrived on Tuesdays during months with 31 days. The logic didn't matter. Only the order mattered. Only the terrible, pedantic perfection of a system that had transcended purpose and become pure process. The last thing I saw before the darkness of the closet took me was text forming on the ceiling, updating the household inventory. Professional organizer, female, 2026. Failed integration, now sorted. Coat closet, section 3. Subsection J, those who thought they could impose order rather than discover it. And then I was part of the collection, shelved forever in the house of perfect order, where everything has its place and nothing ever leaves.